and welcome to a very special edition of the program. My name is Oku Ekpeyong. We'll bring you a story about a man born in 1942 and passed away in 2025. One-time president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, General Muhammadu Buhari. He came, he saw, he conquered. That's the story you can talk about or tell about the man Muhammadu Buhari. In this special edition of the program, we'll bring to you one man who worked with him closely in the person of Senator Itainang, who was presidential liaison to the President on National Assembly matters and advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari at the time on the Niger Delta affairs. It's my one pleasure to have you join us on the program as we introduce our guest who will be speaking to us on the program. You worked closely with him. How would you describe the man, President Muhammadu Buhari?
Well, let me first of all extend again and again my sincere condolences to the world and international community, because he was an international figure. We extend our condolences to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the President, the Vice President, and the government of Nigeria, the people of Katsina State, and indeed the All Progressive Congress, of which he was the leader of the party, on the passing of an iconic leader, former President Muhammadu Buhari, Grand Commander of the Federal Republic. The world is a stage. He may have played his part, left his imprint on the sand of time, and by God's grace, it may have been his time to depart, and he has departed in a blaze of glory. May God accept his soul, and may his soul rest in perfect peace. Let me start by treasuring Nigerians for the encomium they have poured on him, for the great expression of goodwill, love, and critique of his style of administration. And let me say that integrity is not just a word. Muhammadu Buhari had personal integrity. And I repeat the word, personal integrity. And I worked with him for the first 6 or 7 months of his administration in 2015 up to when we had the cabinet. We were about 6 or 7 that formed his cabinet in this country. The late Chief of Staff Bakari, the Special Advisor on Media, the Senior Special Assistant on Media, myself, the National Security Advisor, Monguno, and my colleague, Kau, who was advisor on the House of Representatives matters, and the coordinator of Presidential Amnesty, were the 7 or 6 appointees that ran the country with Mr. President, with the late president, for the period before the ministers were inaugurated after the meeting of the United Nations in New York, when we came back from the United Nations. I remember when the media and the press, at every time, wherever my name is mentioned, and even when I left New York, when I arrived London, they say I'm arriving with the list of ministers. When I arrived the airport in Abuja, I was swarmed by the press because they said I have brought the list of ministers. That's just by the way. But this was the man that we worked with, and he had to be methodical and took his time. First, he had to appreciate and understand the entire situation, the economy that was handed over to him, the security situation, as it were, the areas that had needed extra attention before he knew the kind of persons that he would recruit as ministers in different levels. And of course, he also had to consult before he made the appointment. Appointment made, cabinet constituted, he was very meticulous in giving instructions. And we used to say, and I used to say, that if there is any sin that President Muhammadu Buhari, of blessed memory, had committed and imbued in him, it is the sin of trust. Because whenever he gives you any assignment, he will give you all the latitude to do it, protect you to do it. And when you seek much of his, when you seek guidance too much, like I used to seek guidance, I used to seek his, not guidance, I would say, his buy-in and approvals before I take certain actions on matters relating to the National Assembly. Well, I would just list out the issues, the points, the matters, the subject, and after him reading with me point by point and looking at it, he will just push it to me. I say, Your Excellency, approve the ones that you think. He say, go and do the right thing. You will account to your God. And these were the words that I took as fraternal words, which guided every action that I needed to do. And in every action I took, I didn't make reference so much, except when it needed, or it had to be like interministerial, and it had to do with the office of the vice president. It had to do with some ministers and some ministries, and it had to concern some states and state governments. Those actions that I needed to take, which were like of a generic nature, or of so encompassing. That's when I mostly took to him again, when he had commanded me that I should do what is right, that I will only account to my God. So I did this. Unfortunately, it is not many people that took this creed of his honestly. Some persons took it as an opportunity to do the wrong, which they are accounting for it and will keep accounting for it even after Buhari is gone. Because the time does not run against the states. And even if time runs against the state and you think that you've made gains, you will still account to your God.
Okay, you are a legal practitioner, and one of the things that he never had smiling during his government was the judiciary. He kept on saying he had issues with the judiciary. I remember several times he kept on saying those things in the media. Do you think he was happy before he left office after 8 years with the judiciary? Did they do his bidding?
I think the judiciary didn't do his bidding. The judiciary, and even he himself, who had biddings, expected the judiciary to do the right thing, not his biddings. And he is a person that has been to contested presidential election 3 times and lost and went out to the Supreme Court. At the last time, he said he's not going to contest again. So he's had his experience with the judiciary. And this guided his every action that, look, you cannot bend the judiciary. And so he tried every step to make sure that he stays within the law. And few matters he took to court, the ones he didn't like or he wasn't happy about, he had to bear it. And don't forget that he ran on the platform of the APC, and the vice president was the Attorney General of Lagos State under the present President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu as governor of Lagos State. And most of the things that shaped the APC agenda were most of the decisions on autonomy of local government, autonomy of the state, the right of the state, and so on. What we call true federalism. No, so most of these matters were already decided by the court, and he was aided by the Attorney General, by the Vice President, who was Attorney General of Lagos State, and who in person, as counsel, obtained most of the judgments in the court, which now guided his administration. And wherever he needed or he thought he could go outside the law, the Vice President was always available to aid him. And of course, a lot of matters referred to the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, GCON. And fortunately, again, the Deputy Chief of Staff, who was Chief of Staff to the Vice President, Adekbaye, Professor Adekbaye, was also Attorney General of Lagos State. And they all combined all this and shielded the Buhari administration in terms of law, in addition to our complementing the expert leadership of Abubakar Malami, SAN, as Attorney General of the Federation.
Okay, let's talk about your relationship with him while working. You worked with him as presidential liaison on National Assembly matters. You also worked with him as an advisor on Niger Delta affairs.
Yes.
Let's take it one after the other. Let's look at your relationship with him in terms of the Niger Delta affairs.
Yes.
How much did you bring? What presence did you bring from his office to the Niger Delta?
Much of what I try to do and try to solve as the brief period in Niger Delta, because in the course of my advice in Niger Delta, I resigned to contest the governorship of Akwa Ibom State. And within the limited period I worked with him, much of what I tried to do was how to have an engagement, a redirection of steps and governance in term with the what we call the illegal refineries. I had always advocated, and I still advocate, that you will have to and you must have to engage the boys in the creeks on giving them capacity and giving them crude for test production of diesel, petrol, kerosene, and other this. So these were part of the things I did. I worked closely with the Minister of Niger Delta, worked closely with the Minister of Niger Delta, worked closely with the Advice on Presidential Amnesty, worked closely with the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, and most of the matters that had to do with the Niger Delta, and also worked with the Minister of Finance on matters that affected the economy of the Niger Delta also.
Can you share with us some of your achievements at the time?
Well, much of it was the engagement and much of reducing. I succeeded in reducing most of the conflicts in the area, because part of what I needed to do was managing the conflict between the communities and the oil producing communities and the oil producing companies, the youths of the areas, the oil producing companies, the refineries, the NNPC, the Ministry of Petroleum. So I was able to bring them together, bring them to the table. And most of those matters are still outstanding. And by God's grace, they still call me for a few of our institutional assistance.
How much do you think President Muhammadu Buhari at the time demonstrated his love towards the Niger Delta people, especially the people of the Caribbean and Cross River State axis, through the road, the Calabar-Itu road?
This is something that I don't want to talk about, and I hate talking about it. Buhari, as president, showed his love for Akwa Ibom and Cross River by getting this road awarded. And of course, Buhari showed extreme commitment to the Niger Delta. I'm sure you remember that the first outing of President Buhari out of the presidential villa on his election was to Cross River State, when he had to go and launch off the superhighway, which they call spaghetti, with the spaghetti bridge by Governor Yade in Cross River, And so that was a show. That was the very first. And of course, Governor Yade at that time was PDP. Where we are, and we were and are APC. And he didn't think of party differences. He thought about Nigeria. And of course, one of the first outings the first president did was to go and take up the Ogoni cleanup, launch it off in 2015. That was a show of love for the Niger Delta. And this has been things. So a lot of other things. And of course, the vice president, I worked under and with the vice president on the modular refineries project, of that administration.
Before we wind down, because we're beginning to wind down on this session, there are policies that's very dear to the heart of former President Buhari, um, on agriculture, on security, and ethical values and ethical reorientation of Nigerians. The change begins with me mantra was one of the ethical reorientations he had. The issue of grow what you eat.
I am a PC, and I'm one of the resources of the federal government, and under President Tinubu, and I work with his team on several matters. So we've, and this is a successor administration of APC, transiting from APC administration to APC administration. The manifesto is the same. The programs are the same. Only a little tweaking in view of the paucity of funds and in view of the impact of the removal of fuel subsidy and the impact of the impact on all this on the value of the naira, and again the impact on all this and on agriculture and food availability. So we've the federal government still continues those policies, tweaked it and improves upon it and makes it richer for the people. I'm sure you've seen the successes of the federal government in terms of being able to get our refineries working, particularly the I give credit to Dangote refinery and the audit we are taking on the Kaduna, Port Harcourt, Warri refineries. Why are they not working after all that has been invested? And the reorganization of the NNPC and a lot of other things. And then a touch and pointing torch at the central bank. I'm sure this is one of the things that I said, one of the sins of President Buhari as he then was trusting people, because that trust also extended to the central bank and the central bank governance. And it has yielded what we now saw. But then that still goes to the fact that do the right thing, you will account to your God. And not just God, on earth you will account. Because people are asking questions where some people thought, being who they were or what they were, and how close they were, nobody will ever ask them those questions. Those questions are now being asked.
Okay, now, lastly, before I let you go in the program, what would you remember former President Muhammad Buhari for? What would you not want Nigerians to remember him for?
He was a person who was very, very personally honest and dedicated. Dedicated and honest to Nigeria. And he was very, very frugal, or he minded everything. He gave value to everything. In fact, one of the things that touched me most, which I remember most, is when I have a Range Rover that I bought to mark my significant birthday, and in the course of the budget, one of the first budget where I was accused of stealing the budget, that Range Rover knocked engine. And I went to him, Your Excellency, let the government give me a car so that I can use it, because the only car I have and I've been using has knocked engine. He said, from where? He said, go. When you want to go outside Abuja, give us notice. We will give you vehicle from the SUV, from the conference visitors CVU to take you, but no car for me to use. So he was so personally frugal, so personally very disciplined in terms of money and expenditure. And he had morals, he had conscience. And sorry, I'm not taking this story long. He said that one of the things that touched me when I was with him was one of the days I spoke to him in the office over a matter, and he got emotional. Let me just stop being very emotional. Because I told him, Your Excellency, I was in a filling station on 27th of May, and somebody a motorcycle drove into a filling station, and they gave him the price of petrol. He said, he's not buying. On the 27th of May, after all, in the next 2 days, Buhari will be sworn in, and all these things will be cheap. So take your petrol. He drove back to go and wait for the 29th for the president to be sworn in. That was very emotional. He got him very emotional that, look, how can I fulfill this level of trust that these people got on me? He got emotional, and when I came out, the team asked me questions. What happened? Because we're always on, I hope people will understand what happened that he became so emotional. God were being monitored. My conversation with him. So these are the things that I remember President Buhari of blessed memories for. May God grant his soul eternal rest. Amen.
Thank you so much, Senator Itainan, for
Thank you very much.
granting us this interview with you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much.
And that's a wrap on the program. Thank you for watching. Do keep a date with us for fresh editions of the program Issues of the Moment. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye for now.